Hello, Night Special Forces. Who dares wins. So this is just a quick guide now today for interface setups and with action bar setups. So at the moment I'm using Necromancy. That is the style that I use quite a lot now. It's the only one that I've fully invested into for now. It is overpowered at the moment, so there's just no reason, in my opinion, to do anything else. So that is the key factor of what I'll be going on to over today is Necromancy, how I use my Revolution bar, how much of a Revolution bar I use, and what abilities do what. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Okay, so first things first, I'll go with my interface. So by no means my interface optimal or the best it possibly could be, but it works for me. Your interface might work different for you. My interface may look a mess to you. It may not be tidy or whatever, but this is what works for me. So it might work for other people, so I'll go over it. So here on the left, I've just got my chat box. So I've got my clan chat here, friends chat, group chat, and then the all chat. That's all I've got here. Next to that, I've got my drops. So if I'm doing an AFK task, I don't know, say like if I'm doing Abyssal Demons for like inventor training like I was earlier today, then I would be able to see quickly if I've got a rare drop and I've missed it or things like that. If like I didn't see the loot pop up, so it will pop up on here. So I've got it set to everything that drops, not just what I pick up. So the only way you do that is by clicking on settings by here, and then go to drops, and then you can drop log mode, either drop or loot. So if you pick loot, it's whatever you pick up. What it's dropped, it's whatever the monsters drop that you kill. So I find that really, really handy. Right next to that, I've got my gear. So I like it so I could see my little guy. You don't have to. You can make it a little bit smaller, but it's just so I know what I've got equipped at what time. Yeah. So then the next bar I've got down by here. There's a couple of little side tabs here, just because I know I like to use these every now and then. I don't use my range abilities often, or the melee, but they are there just in case I need to press them at any time. So I've got my Necromancy incantations on their own, because for a long time I didn't have them over on my actual use bars. Next I've got the magic spells. I use that for a lot for PKing, so that's why that's there. Then I've got my necromancy abilities, I've got my magic spells, so my teleports are here, that's what I usually keep them on. But you've also got all your other skills, etc. on there, but I mainly keep it on my teleports. Then you've got your ranged abilities, and the defensive and constitution abilities. So the defensive abilities, I only have it by here, because if I'm taking somebody through an elite dungeon, I can quickly press provoke, because it just saves me putting a bar by here. So I can press provoke, and then I can take the boss off of somebody else. And then same for insight. No, that's siphon. Insight. So it allows me to take the aggro as long as I hit the creature. So again, it's more of a tanking mechanic. It's the only reason why I've got them there. Then I've got my prayers there, just in case I haven't got them here. And then I've got my skills, because when I'm training I like to see what I'm doing. After that, we've got the action bars. So I've got 4 extra action bars here, and the way you get them to come up is, so if you press this little cog down by here, where the combat settings are, you can then go into combat and action bar, and then you go action bar. So you've got your additional action bars that could be displayed here. So it doesn't matter which one you pick here, because whichever one you pick, it will just bring up that one. So say like right now, action bar, my additional action bar 1 is set to 2, so that's this one by here. And this one is 7, which is this one here. This one is 4, which is this one here. And this one is 1, which is this one here. That one is kind of irrelevant. I don't really need that one. But I like to have it there anyway, because it makes my interface look flush. So that's how you do that. And then I've got my main action bar by here, with all my little boosts and everything. Then I've got the main banner, just because I want it on there and I just didn't know where else to fit it. I like to have the Revolution combat sticker thing there, simply because I can just right click it and pick if I wanted to ever go to full manual. I don't generally go to full manual, but if I need to, I can. Then I've got my Slayer kill count there, just because I did a lot of Slayer back in the day. That's the only reason I have that there. Then we go on to this part here. So this is my main go-to little bit that I've got on my interface. So my first thing first is my infantry. Obviously got that set up there. After that I got my friends list and the clan chat list. Then the emotes are there for when I was doing clue scrolls. I like to change up the music every now and then, so I've got the music player there. And then I've got the group list and the friends chat list, for when I used to join different friends chats back when I was PKing. A lot of those things aren't necessary. The clan one I do feel, as obviously we are quite orientated to talk to each other, I do feel like the clan chat one's quite important. However, the only real important ones here, I would say, for anybody else who wants to copy this, would be the backpack, the clan chat list and the friends chat list. I would say that's pretty much on the group in chat list as well. That would be really, really handy to have there, because when we do a lot of bossing, like Elite Dungeons and all that, it's quite helpful. So the one above it is my familiar. So I like to see then how much health my familiar has, how much special attack it has. Obviously I haven't got a familiar at the moment, so there it says unavailable. But I'll get one out to show you the interface quickly. So we shall grab a Ripper Demon. Why not? Right, so we grab a Ripper Demon, and you'll see instantly it's showing up all by here. So I can see his special attack, how much special points he's got left, how much health he's got, how many scrolls that he is holding. So when I give him scrolls by here, he'll hold them by here, and whatever's in my inventory is by here. But I always try to make it there so it's a free inventory space. And then if I ever need to, I can just dismiss him at a click of a button. After that, we've got the map. So generally I change the size of the map, depends if I'm doing trash runs or stuff, but 9 times out of 10 I just leave it there. It's a decent size for me. I don't feel like it needs to be much bigger at all. There's only select niche circumstances where I feel like it does. Yeah, so that is my interface, how I've got it set up, with everything that you can see. So if I go into here now, and then I click on to edit layout mode, and I'll have a look at advanced options. It looks very, very, very scary at the moment. It's not that bad at all. You can tick all of these off so it's less scary, so you can see a little bit more of what you're doing. But as you can see here, so I like to have my buff bar down here. So I've clicked on my buff bar and I've brought it down to here. Once I'm set, alright, that's where I want it, I can just tick that off and then go on to my next thing that I want to change. So my crafting process is up here because it's only just out of the way for when I'm AFK. And I've put that up where my XP is as well, because it's all out of the way when I'm actually doing something like bossing or something. So my debuff bar is the other important one, so I've got that just under my buff bar, because then I can see all in one area what is benefiting me and what isn't. So I can tell where my cooldowns are for my my Ancient Alpha Ritual Shard and my Enhanced Excalibur and things like that. Many things you can change here. Example, your loot box. So if you were, again, if you want to move your loot box, because it's probably in the middle here, you can move it then to anywhere on the screen you want. I've got mine just sat by here because it's just nice and it's not obstructing my view too much. Again, for example, if I'm AFK, I've just got area loot on. And then the XP pop-ups, like I say, I've got them all up here. But all of these, you can change them to however you want. And that's where they will pop up on your screen. But like I say, so that is generically what I've got going on with mine. Okay, so we'll go on to the next step now. So we'll talk about the abilities and what they do. So with my ability bar, so I'll go with my main action bar first, and then I'll talk about the other abilities that are on my other action bars, to give you more of an insight of them. So my necromancy setup, this is my main bossing setup, so this is a single target. Generally I don't really do a different action bar anymore because I have got my AoE abilities on here as well. I just don't need to use them that often. Okay, so First things first, I've got Soul Sap. It's the first ability I use every single time. It generates a residual soul. So every single time you use it, and it generates 8% adrenaline unless you've got any other buffs like I have, so mine produces 9%. After Soul Sap, we've got Touch of Death. So that generates 4 necrosis stacks. So these two abilities you want to use whenever you can, because they always generate your stacks, which do your high damage abilities. You want them constantly on cooldown. You want to keep using them. Then I've got my basic attack. So the basic attack I've got on there simply because if you're moving and attacking someone, Revolution doesn't trigger. So it's there so I can use it quickly, and I've just put it inside of the Revo bar just because it's easier to use then. After that then I have my Volley of Souls. So the Volley of Soul spends the residual souls that you get from Soul Sap. Once you are full with your souls, that's when you want to use Volley of Souls. If you've got the tier 95 armor, that's when you've got 5. If you haven't and it's just the tier 90s, then you've got 3. Next one we've got is Finger of Death. So that consumes 6 necrosis stacks. For every necrosis stack you don't have, it will spend 10% adrenaline. So for example, if we just use Touch of Death once, we get 4 necrosis stacks, and then straight after that we use Finger of Death, we will spend the 4 necrosis stacks and 20% adrenaline, which isn't ideal. So you don't want to use Finger of Death straight away. You only really want to use Finger of Death when you see that you are on either 12, 8, or 6 necrosis stacks, because it's a free high damage threshold. Anything more, it costs adrenaline, and adrenaline is very valuable in PVM. So you want to use it on abilities that deal more damage, if you understand. So next up we've got Death's Essence. This is the tier 95 special attack. So after this, what it does, Touch of Death, Finger of Death, and Death Skulls, they all ready Death Spark immediately. So Death Spark is an upgraded version of your basic attack, which means that Death Spark deals double damage. Whenever you use Touch of Death, Finger of Death, or Death Skulls, you immediately want to use your basic attack straight away, because it's an extra double damage. So what I would tend to do is, as soon as I've used Death's Essence, I will use Touch of Death. I will use Death Spark, then I will use Touch of Death, and then Death Spark again, then Finger of Death, and then Death Spark again. Okay? So after that, we have Death's Grasp. So this is the tier 70, 80, and 90 Death Guard special attack. It's really, really powerful. It stuns and binds targets for 4.8 seconds, and it deals an additional 892 damage for each necrosis stack. So if you realise that you've got plenty of necrosis stacks left and you haven't used your Finger of Death, use your Death Grasp, and it will do upwards of 30,000 damage in a critical hit. So what you can do is, if you notice you've got, for example, 8 necrosis stacks, use a Finger of Death and then follow that up with a Death Grasp. So you're still spending all your necrosis stacks, but you don't miss out on using your Finger of Death. So after that, we have Blood Siphon. So I really only use this when I'm going through elite dungeons. If I notice that I've taken a lot of damage and my health is getting quite low, I'll pop the Blood Siphon, because any enemies that are around me, I damage them for 490 to 623 every single time it hits, and it heals you for 70% of the damage that you deal. So if you're dealing a mob of 10 enemies, for example, you're healing incredibly fast, and then after that, on the target that you are targeting with your Blood Siphon, you will deal a massive hit to that target. So if you've got, for example, like a big boss enemy and he's got loads of minions around him, pop the Blood Siphon, let it finish, and then you will deal about 21,000 damage to the opponent, to the boss. Following that, I've got my Skeleton Warrior. I've only got that on there for Command Skeleton. So as soon as I'll summon my army, and after I've done that, we will now have Command Skeleton, which increases his damage output exponentially. As soon as you can, you want to use Command Skeleton. You want to keep commanding him as much as you can. It does cost a good global cooldown, but his damage is really, really powerful. The only times you would opt not to use it is if if you're about to use a different ability, like a high damaging ability, in your rotation. After that, we have Death Skulls. It's it's the best ability that you possibly can have. So it's your ultimate ability in Necromancy, and it launched a flurry of skulls at the target. They all deal between about 5,000 to 6,000 damage, or 225% to 275% damage per hit. They bounce between enemies within 6 tiles of each other up to 6 times. This increases with the Zut Cape. So it reduces the amount of adrenaline that Death Skulls requires by 40%, and it causes it to hit an additional 2 times. So that's why mine is at 6. So you probably notice that yours is up at 4. So when I use my Death Skulls, it does a lot of damage over time, especially on one boss, because if it can't hit another enemy, it bounces to you and then bounces back to them. You use Death Skulls whenever you can, if you've got the Zut Cape. If you haven't got the Zut Cape, it's not really worth it. You are much better using the next ability, because you will generate more DPS through that way. However, like I said, if it's 60% adrenaline and you've got it down to with the Zut Cape, you want to use it as much as you possibly can. So the next ability, one I just referred to, is Living Death. So this is basically, if you've ever played the game before and you've used Death Swiftness or Sunshine or Berserk, it's that version for Necromancy. It doesn't really bolster your damage as much as the others do. However, it has a lot of benefits. So your basic attacks generate 2 necrosis stacks every time you use it, which means that you can get Finger of Death off really, really quickly. Touch of Death generates an additional 6% adrenaline. So again, you're pushing that adrenaline. You want to get as much adrenaline as you possibly can to deal a lot more damage. Finger of Death then deals an extra 1.5% damage, which means that you will deal a lot more damage when you're using that Finger of Death, obviously. So you want to try and get that off as much as you possibly can. The other ability you want to get off as much as you can during this time as well is Death Skulls. So instead of it taking a whole minute to cool down, it now only takes 12 seconds to cool down while you're in Living Death. So the duration of Living Death is 30 seconds. So in theory, you should be able to get Death Skulls off 3 times within that Living Death cycle. So you need to get your adrenaline up to 60% 3 times. And that's how you're going to get your massive DPS. And when you reset it, the cooldown of Touch of Death and Death Skulls are reset. As soon as you cast Living Death, they are both reset. So you can have a good start of getting that DPS straight out. It ties in really well, say, if you've got the Ring of Vigor. There is a relic as well. I can't remember the name of the relic, but it does hold a 10% adrenaline too. So the maximum amount of adrenaline that you can withhold with using the ultimate ability is 30% adrenaline, which is actually a lot for DPS. But at the moment myself, I've only got the Ring of Vigor. That is something I need to look into. Next up, we've got Conjure Undead Army. So the start of before every encounter, I always conjure my Undead Army. The Ghost give you nice healing, the Skeleton Warrior is nice DPS, Putrid Zombie is nice DPS, and the Phantom Guardian just tanks a little bit of damage. All in all, if you've got them, you may as well use them. Next ability I've got is my Spectral Scythe. So that is just for my AoE. It's basically like using melee and you use Cleave, Hurricane, and then Meteor. That's in those orders, it bolsters up to that. After that, the last one I've got on this bar is Split Soul. So this works really well with Soul Split. It's essentially the Eldritch Crossbow spec for ranged, but for necromancy. And it doesn't cost you 2 billion. It's literally costs you a couple of hours in the soul getting souls for the Well of Souls. 400% of the life points that you would have gained from Soul Split is dealt to your target instead. So the way that Soul Split works is every hit you do, it heals you slightly. Doesn't matter how big the hit is, it's how many hits. So it works really, really, really well with Volley of Souls. So if you've got 5 souls, for example, and you've just used Split Soul, you hit it with the Volley of Souls, it will deal 5 lots of 1,100 damage. Whereas if I used Split Soul and used my spec, it would only deal about 1,500, because it goes on a percentage of what damage you do, but it caps at a certain amount. So that's why more hits are better. So the more of the Volley of Souls that you can strike at it while under the influence of Split Soul, the more damage you are going to do. Okay, so on to my other action bars. We've got, I wouldn't even bother about this one. I'm focusing solely on necromancy, which will include the defensive abilities and prayers. So I've got my devotion. You can get this from Elite Dungeon, no, not Elite Dungeon, sorry, God Wars Dungeon 1 bosses, or I think it's the Tusker minigame that you can get it from. It might be the Anima Islands minigame. I'm not sure which one it is. It's one of those two, but you can get it from there. After that, we've got Debilitate. So Debilitate reduces the damage that you take by 50% from the boss that you use it on, or the monster that you use it on. It's brilliant. It saved me in countless amount of times. If you haven't got your devotion, or if you haven't got resonance available, use Debilitate, because like I say, it will drop any damage that you take by 50% from that boss. After that, I've got Reprisal. I'll be honest, I don't use this a lot anymore. I mainly used it for PKing, because any damage that you take is stored, and then it's dealt back to the opponent. It is really powerful. It's not so powerful in PVM, because the damage that you can do with your other abilities way outweigh the amount of damage that Reprisal can do. Followed up by the Dive, Escape, and Surge abilities. They speak for themselves, really. Then I've got Siphon. Again, I use that when I'm PKing. It's no good in PVM at all. Then I've got my Freedom and Anticipation. So Freedom removes you from a stun, and you get immunity to stuns and bites for 6 seconds. Anticipation does that, but you have to do it before getting stunned, and it lasts for 10 seconds. However, another thing with Anticipation that a lot of people don't know is it does reduce damage taken by 10%. So if you use Anticipation and Debilitate, so you know there's a big ability coming up, you haven't got your prayers ready, Anticipation and Debilitate will then altogether reduce the damage that you're going to take by 60%, which is massive. I've just got my Disassemble there because I needed somewhere to put it. Then I've got my War's Retreat Teleport because I use that the most. And then I've got my Eat Food and my Saradome Brews combination there. Again, that's just it's just a utility bar. It's just where I've got a couple of things that I use that I need. Followed down here, so we've got Preparation, which will help me. Okay, that shouldn't be there. Okay, we'll just leave that then. And this was meant to be my prayer bar, so there's a couple of like outliers here which I haven't addressed. So we'll talk about the rest of the stuff here. So we've got Soul Split, Protect from Necromancy, Protect from Melee, Mage, and Ranged. Then I've got my damage buffing curses down here as well, and then I've got Protect Item again from when I used to PK. And this is my last utility bar. It's mainly my defensive and necromancy power bar. So I've got my resonance on here, followed by preparations. This is this ability I was about to talk about earlier. It helps reduce the cooldown for resonance by 3 seconds for every attack that you receive. And it lasts for 9 seconds. So if you say that you're coming into like a flurry of attacks or whatever, or you need resonance quickly, use preparation and it will make resonance come back quite easily. I've got immortality by here, so this is purely because if at any point you feel, oh no, I'm going to die, but oh, I've got 100% adrenaline, throw down Immortality, and it will bring you back if you die with 40% of your maximum life points. So if you're just about the end of a boss, you've got no food left, and Barricade would be helpful, but you just need that little bit more health. You can use Immortality to come back with 40% of your maximum life points, and then go straight back into the fight. After that, then we've got what I just spoke about now, Barricade. It reduces the all damage. No damage can be dealt to you while this is up. And it lasts for 4.8 to 10.2 seconds based on the level of your shield. So 10.2 seconds would be your tier 90 shield, and then 4.8 seconds would be like your wooden shields and stuff like that. With Bone Shield, with Necromancy, you can use all your defensive abilities anytime. You don't need to have a shield equipped, which makes it really, really powerful. And with the Zimmerogel Nexus, instead of the normal Nexus, it increases your Bone Shield up to level 75 when you're at level 120 Necromancy. It increased the level by 15. There we go. So you've got a better shield. So with 75, it's about an 8-second Barricade. Then I've got my Darkness ability, my Vulnerability Bombs, my Life Transfer. So I'll talk about Darkness a little bit, because some people don't really know what it does. So Darkness lasts for 12 minutes, and it reduces all damage taken by 20%. I mean, 20% chance to dodge incoming attacks, or you get 20% back health-wise, essentially, if you get what I'm saying. 20% reduction to damage at all times for the duration that it lasts. After that, we've got Life Transfer. So I use this generally when I'm going into a longish boss fight, and I need my conjures to last a little bit longer. So it cuts 50% of your life points. It gets rid of them straight away, but it makes your conjures last 21 seconds longer. So I'll show you with this now. So I'll summon up my conjures, and then I will use Life Transfer. You see above their heads, their bars have gone up a lot more, but my health bar dropped square in half. But they're going to last, like I say, an extra 21 seconds, which is really powerful, because then you don't have to worry about summoning your conjures again and whatever. Down here I've got Reflect. So this reduces damage taken by 50%, and it goes back to the attacker. So it lasts for 9.6 seconds, so it's a better Debilitate, essentially. And it doesn't share a cooldown with Debilitate. So you can use both of these in conjunction with each other to reduce more damage. So down here I've got Bloat. I only really use these if I've got a lot of AoE mobs to deal with. Use that, and then every time a mob dies, it passes Bloat on to the next creature, and so on and so on. Down here then I've got Invoke Death, the best ability Necromancy has, without a doubt. As soon as a boss monster goes below 20% life points or 30% life points, whichever is higher, it's an instant death. So, for example, if you go to a boss with 150,000 life, and it drops down to 30,000, it's instantly dead. So you just sit. Essentially it's a 30,000 damage move. That's the best way to look at it, and it just saves a lot of time. It drops a lot of stress off of the kill, because if you're in a boss encounter, the quicker that you kill the boss, the less time you're in the encounter, the less damage you have to take. Then I've got Soul Strike down here, another Necromancy ability, but it stuns and binds. So I mainly use this for Ambassador when he's using the black holes. I use it on the Celestial Dragons when they pop up saying that they're going through time, etc. Use that, it stops that from happening. Really, really good ability to use. Then the last one I've got in my ability bars is Threads of Fate. So if you're not using this when you're dealing with mobs, you need to be using it. It's a single target Necromancy attacks will then become up to 4 additional enemies within 4 tiles of each other. Any ability you use. So if that is soul volley, your spec, it all works. What I tend to do with it, if I notice I haven't got any soul stacks, I will use Threads of Fate, followed up by a soul sap, then followed up by a volley of souls, because that will, with the soul sap, every enemy it hits, it gives you a soul. So if you hit an additional 4 enemies, that's 5 total. So with the TN85s, you're instantly at max souls, and then you use volley of souls, and you deal about 6,000 damage to every single mob that is around you. So it's a really powerful combination. Okay, now the last thing we're going to go over today is the key binding of my abilities. So while you've been watching this video, I don't know if you would have noticed, but there's a lot of abilities that have keybinds on them, especially on the main action bar, but some of these as well. These are something you have to get comfortable and used to doing. So I always used to turn my camera with the WASD keys. I don't anymore. As I noticed, a lot of high-level PVM YouTubers don't use it. They use it for abilities. And then what they use to move their camera is the mouse wheel button. So if you press down your mouse wheel and tilt your mouse, it moves the screen for you. It's a lot more freedom, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier, but you do have to get used to it. Like I say, it took me a little bit to get used to, but you just force yourself to get used to it, and it's quite easy to get hold of. So, the other abilities that have keybinds, it's whatever works for you and your playstyle on the keyboard. But again, you have to persevere with it and get yourself used to it with muscle memory. For example, like my Invoke Death is on tab. So I know as soon as I walk into an encounter, I can just press tab, and I don't have to find it down here. I can just press tab. And then same as if I see that a boss is doing a prayer quickly, I don't have to panic and rush down here to press a prayer. I can just put Soul Split. Oh, he's doing that, so I can put Mage on. Oh, he's going into range, so I can put that on. And that's just by holding Control and 5. And then for like escape and dive, etc., I use my F keys, because I know they're way up out the way, and it's easy to tell with my hands without actually looking at my keys where my hands are. So F1 is surge, and then I've got dive on F3, and then escape on F2. But obviously I can't use it because I haven't got double escape yet. But again, like I say, it's whatever works for you personally. Like my food, I've got mine on Q and W, but some people would have it elsewhere. You can match your keys with anything you want. Like my resonance is on R. It makes sense. Resonance R. Barricade is on B. Again, it's just whatever works for you. So the way we're going to do that is by, if we go into our combat settings again, and we go to controls, it's going to look really, really overwhelming, but again, I'll break it down for you. It's a lot more simple than what it seems. So you scroll down here, ignore all of this bit because this is like opening up for things from this tab. We don't want anything to do that. We go to an action bar. So we've got main action bar, which will be the one that I talked about down here. It's your main one with all your stats on. You can customize your keybinds with anything you want. So like I've got ASD on my first 3 abilities, because those are the 3 abilities that I'll use if I'm running around. So if I'm running around, I'll be using my right hand. I can't bring my hand over. And then all the rest down here are 1 to 0. And I've got them numbered on because I've got an MMO mouse, so I can use them with my other hand while I'm concentrating on DPS. Going down here, so we go down to additional bar 1. So my additional bar 1 is this one here. You can have it a lot more, making a lot more sense if you wanted to, and put 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm an idiot and I don't. So each slot corresponds with each square, obviously. So additional action bar 1 here, I've got my 5, 6, and 7 is down here. 5, 6, and 7. Where I've got my dive, my escape, and my surge. And then 9, 10, 11 is where I've got Z for my freedom, I've got X for my anticipation, and then I've got my N for my disassembly. It's way out there out the way. Then we have my action bar slot 13 and 14 for when I'm eating food. Then we go on to, so we try and break it down now, so after 14 there. So then we go on to action bar 2, which is the one underneath this one here. So I've got my first slot set to R, which is my resonance. Then we've got B, which is barricade. And then we've got control A down here, which is my split cell. And then I've got my tab for my death mark. And control W for my stall strike. And then you just go through these however you want to set them up. So for example, you have got some players that have their ability bars all across this area here. And they set it up exactly how their keyboard is laid out. Maybe that would work for you. Personally, I don't like that. But a lot of this kind of thing is personal. It is however it works for you. But I thought I would give my insight on what I've got set up on my account and what my screen looks like, to try and help you guys, even if it's just to start off, and then you say you use it and then you might think, oh, this doesn't work for me, or that doesn't work, I don't need that, etc, etc. You can always then change it. Anyway guys, that is the end of the video, and I thank you very much for paying attention. Again, if there is any other videos that you guys need, or any advice you would like, please just message me in the clan chat if I'm online. If not, drop me a message on Discord, or if either of them aren't available to you, pass the message on to an admin, or to Alpha or Lycos themselves, and they'll pass it on to me, and I can help you with that. Thank you again guys for watching. Who dares wins. Thank you very much.